James Davis.
Hello, listener, and thank you so much for joining us on the Teaching Abroad pod, coming at you on Wednesday, June 30th. I am your host, James Davis. This podcast is brought to you by Oxford Seminars. If you're looking to teach overseas or online, check out Oxford Seminars' new and improved 120-hour TESOL TESOL TEFL course, complete with access to the unrivaled job placement service. Go to oxfordseminars.com for more details. And with that, welcome to episode 6 of the Teaching Abroad pod, where we discuss all things TESOL, from travel adventure stories and food recommendations to teaching tips and job search advice. We'll be releasing new episodes at least every 2 weeks, so be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Stitcher, or pretty much anywhere. On today's show, we have an interview with ESL teacher and Oxford Seminars instructor, Robin Garnham. But first, I am joined by my co-host, Alex Yayland, a job placement advisor at Oxford Seminars. Alex, how are things?
Hi, James. Things are well here. Enjoying this nice summer weather we're having, end of June. Looking forward to July and August. How about you?
I'm doing very well. Yes, I'm enjoying it too. Ziggy, my dog, got a haircut, so he's enjoying it too now. So happy days all around. Today, we are going to be showing an interview with Robin Garnham that we did last week, where we discussed his experiences in Mexico and Chile, and even a little bit of what he does with Oxford Seminars. You yourself are, the job placement advisor with the most experience in that region. So do you have any fun stories for us from your time in that part of the world?
Yeah, I think like anybody who's spent some time in Latin America, there's no shortage of wacky stories. But one that comes to mind is actually the very first trip I ever took was a backpacking trip with a couple friends. And it was a trip to Ecuador and Peru. And so the plan was to fly into Quito, Ecuador, and then spend 3 months traveling by land down through Ecuador, across the border, and then down into Peru. And so we booked that flight. So the flight in was to Quito, which is a very high altitude capital city, like over 2,000 meters, I think, nestled up in the Andes. And so I guess it's not uncommon for Quito to have quite a lot of overcast, being at such a high altitude. So as we were flying in on the plane, you could tell it was really, really cloudy. And like we were descending, and you were just descending through cloud layer after cloud layer after cloud layer. And, we got the first descent, we got down, 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 almost to the point where you could start to see the buildings emerge out of the clouds. And at the last minute, a pilot just pulled back and we were all like, whoa. So we pulled out of the descent, and then they sort of came on the intercom and said, well, there's a lot of overcast, so we're gonna have to circle around, get back in the queue, and then try again. So we did that, and strike two, same thing happened. We got back in the queue, we waited. When it was our turn, we tried to descend, and boom, pulled back at the last minute. And same thing, we ended up trying it 3 times, 3 descents that they couldn't make. And at that point, we'd been in the air an extra, at least probably 2 hours. So it was like, how much fuel do we have left? Well, like, we can't keep doing this forever. And so they came on the intercom and they basically said something to the effect of, it's impossible for us to land tonight in Quito. So we're gonna have to go to, I think what they said was sort of an alternate landing option. And so most of us thought we'd go to Guayaquil, which is like the 2nd biggest city in Ecuador. So all we knew was we weren't landing in Quito and we were gonna have to land somewhere else. So lo and behold, we landed somewhere else, and that somewhere else ended up being Bogota, Colombia. So this was, and by this point it was like the middle of the night, it was probably 1 a.m. So this was like an unscheduled landing in Bogota. I remember there was no one really in the airport at that hour. Like the airport was pretty much closed. We never cleared customs. I don't know how they arranged this. They basically we landed, they shuffled us off the plane. We never got stamped into Colombia. We never passed through customs. They just sort of said, stand over there in the corner of the airport. They brought us our luggage, like just our luggage. And they said, don't move, don't leave. A bus is coming. You're going straight to the hotel. Do not leave the hotel. You're locked in the hotel. At 5 a.m., you're getting back on the bus, and we're getting you back on a plane, and we're getting you out of here. Like, it was clear that we weren't supposed to be there, and they didn't want anybody disappearing. So that's what happened. So we went to the hotel, and if anyone who's been to Bogota, at least back then, at night, everything is shut. Like, they just drop gates, barriers over all the shops. Everything is shut with security fences and bars. So like, it's like a ghost town at night. So we drove through this ghost town to the hotel, and we were thinking, okay, 5 a.m. we'll get the call and we'll be back on the road. Well, 5 a.m. rolls around, there's no call. Then it's 6 a.m., then it's 7 a.m. By about 11 a.m., it's clear that this morning flight didn't happen. It wasn't going to happen. And so they got on the phone with us, and they basically said, look, we can't get you on a flight until at least later this afternoon, possibly even this evening. So at that point, we're sitting there saying, well, we've got to spend all day in the hotel. And luckily, some of the people who were on our flight in the group with us were Colombians from Bogota. And they said, forget it, this is our city. We got a free day here. Let's go out and explore. We'll take you around. So that's what we did. We busted free. We left the hotel, took off with some local guides, and they just basically showed us around Bogota, which is a really beautiful, amazing city. And in hindsight, I wish we'd budgeted more time for it, because it was gorgeous. And we could, even in the day, we got to see a lot of interesting sights. There's lots to see and do there. So yeah, we got a free day basically in Bogota, and I think we ended up flying out sort of the next morning really early at like 5 a.m. And so yeah, and then we did end up, that time we ended up fine. We landed in Quito, and then we did 2 weeks of Spanish classes in Quito, which is my first introduction to Spanish. We did a homestay there, and then yeah, we traveled by land down. We crossed the border into Peru, went all the way down to Cusco, did the Machu Picchu Trail, which you could still do on foot quite easily back then, which was amazing, and circled back through Nazca, so the Nazca lines, and back up to Lima, and then we flew back to Canada from Lima. So it was a fun 3-month adventure trip.
That is amazing. What a story. I don't know if I would be as relaxed as you seem telling it about that.
A lot
situation.
more relaxing in hindsight than I'm sure it was at the time.
Yeah. I guess that's just how it goes. Like, you just got to roll with it in these situations.
Yeah, I've learned through a lot of traveling that, like, if you can laugh when things get dicey, if you can kind of smile and laugh, it really, you can just keep that mood positive, and everybody suddenly is like, okay, we're in this for an adventure. But if people, when you start to really freak out and it shows, that's when it gets more stressful.
Yeah, the only time that I've had a similar situation is after my first job in Korea. They pay for your flight home. However, you don't really get control sometimes of that flight, so they may just book you on the cheapest thing possible. And so I get my ticket, and then I look at the manifest, and my ex-boss has sent me to London via Hong Kong, Mumbai, and Delhi.
Oh,
so
wow.
It was the longest journey of my life. And yeah, so, but you just have to go with it.
A few bucks by sending you halfway around the world.
She probably saved $100, and she may have wanted me to re-sign, so maybe she was sending me a message, but you just have to roll with it. At the end of the day, it's a free flight. I got to eat, Indian airplane food. It was fine, but yeah, you never know what situation you're going to find yourself in, being overseas.
How long did that take you?
I think it took like a day. I think it was a full day of, like, one of the flights. I don't like one of the internal flight in India. I can't remember if it was Mumbai to Delhi, Delhi to Mumbai. Can't think of the geography, but I don't remember that flight. I'm pretty sure I was asleep from takeoff to landing. It was just chaos. But I made it home, and it was technically a free flight, so you can't complain too much.
In hindsight, they're all great stories. At the time, not so much.
Yeah, exactly. Right, we're going to take a short break, and after that, you will see our interview with Robin Garnham, and we'll talk about Mexico, Chile, and a little bit of Oxford seminars. But first, a word from our sponsor.
With Oxford Seminars, starting your new career teaching ESL couldn't be easier. Oxford Seminars has trained more than 70,000 teachers over the past 20 years, and you could be next. Right now, you have a chance to win the course for free. Find at Oxford Seminars on Instagram, follow the instructions, and you could be chosen on June 30th to take the course absolutely free. Terms and conditions do apply. See full contest details by following at Oxford Seminars on Instagram.
We are now joined by Robin Garnham. Robin originally planned to spend a year teaching in Spain to improve his Spanish, and he's now been teaching for 10 years. He currently works in the training and development department of a nonprofit in San Francisco, California, and he is an Oxford Seminars instructor in the Bay Area. Robin, welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
How are things going in California? Keeping cool?
Things are going well. Everything's opening up now, and things are looking a bit brighter. People are in a good mood. It's sunny. So yeah, things are going pretty well.
I was reading the other day, there's going to be some sort of, it's like a big reopening, like celebration or something in California. Like they're going for it.
I guess the 15th of June, so 3 days ago, was the big reopening. I honestly can't say I've noticed much difference. I guess, people are out and about and, going to restaurants or in the parks, on the beaches. So, yeah.
Nice.
Feels pretty good.
So James mentioned in the intro that you've been teaching for 10 years. What are some of the countries that you've taught in so far?
So I started off very briefly teaching in Spain. I planned to spend a little bit more time there, but I was offered a job working in Mexico. So spent some time in Mexico. After that, went to Chile, so teaching there for about 18 months. And then since then, I've been teaching in California and a little bit in the UK now and again.
What was this job in Mexico that managed to draw you away from Spain?
So I had applied to work for the British Council, which is just kind of like the Peace Corps in the United States, right? But maybe a little bit less political. So I'd applied to that and I'd been rejected. So I decided to go off to Spain and look for a job there, bearing in mind that that was 2010 when there was a pretty severe economic crisis in Spain. So it was a little bit of a struggle to get a job. Found a couple of things, working in some summer camps. And then, out of the blue, they called me and said, somebody's dropped out of our program. Do you want to go and teach in Mexico? So I said yes, and they said, well, you better get back so we can get you a visa. And then 2 weeks later, I was in Mexico.
That's so funny. I had a really similar experience. I was in Spain doing a language course, and I was hoping maybe I'd be able to stay and do some English teaching there. And lo and behold, I ended up with a position in Mexico.
Okay.
So, but I really fell in love with it, and I stayed for almost 10 years. Did you enjoy your time there? Did you like the culture?
Yeah, I mean, as you probably experienced yourself, it was a little bit of a struggle to begin with. A different rhythm, different expectations, different customs, obviously. But where I was, everybody was very welcoming and hospitable. And yeah, I mean, there were ups and downs, but overall it was a great experience. I had a lot of fun, and that's really where I hit my stride with teaching, I think. So
Did working for the British Council really help with that? Because they're kind of notoriously, it's hard to get a job with them, but they are very kind of, they have very high standards too, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely support that they gave everybody. I was on the lowest rung of the ladder as a language assistant though. So, you know, it was good to have that support and, you know, an orientation. I wasn't just thrown in at the deep end. So that definitely helped, because I'm not really sure I was 100% ready for the experience. But, you know, once I was there, I just had to get on with it.
And what about in Chile? Was it a similar experience in terms of the teaching, or was it pretty different?
In Chile, I started off in a similar role, as a volunteer teacher working with the Ministry of Education. I've forgotten what the program's called, but anyway, they send you off to an institution somewhere around Chile. So I went to a rural high school in the south of Chile, in a small town. And you know, that experience was a little trickier to start off with, because there wasn't very much guidance, there wasn't very much support. So they just kind of said, okay, this is where you're going, here's a bus ticket, here's a phone number, and we'll see you in a couple of months. So, you know, that worked out pretty well in the end. But then after that, I was working in Santiago, doing a few different things, but mainly teaching business English, various different companies.
Did you have enough Spanish at that point to navigate stuff on your own like that? Like, was that a big help, having the language skills?
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, day-to-day things were pretty, you know, it's not too hard to get those done, even if you don't speak the language. But I think especially in terms of having a social life, that was very, very important, as, you know, it's a real struggle to have any kind of meaningful interaction with someone if you have basic language skills. So by the time I arrived in Mexico, you know, my Spanish wasn't good, but I could string together sentences and have basic conversations, as I've been studying for a couple of years by that point, maybe about 18 months by that point. So, you know, that definitely helped a lot.
And so would you say that not just from the social side of things, but like getting housing, you know, dealing with a bank, like you were able to kind of navigate those more kind of mundane everyday things?
Of course, yeah. I'm trying to think back now. Obviously, I mean, I think some of those things are extremely challenging, even for locals. Things like opening a bank account or dealing with the immigration system, just because there's so much bureaucracy, and not just Latin American countries, but a lot of Latin American countries have very confusing systems that don't make a lot of sense. So yeah, having some basic language skills was really important to helping me understand what was going on, and kind of, you know, the processes you go through, you generally have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And if you can't interact with the people there, you can't make that happen. So
how did you find the students in Chile and Mexico? Were they similar or different, or?
I think they're quite different, and you know, going to Chile, I think that's one thing that surprised me, was that it wasn't quite what I expected. You know, someone like Mexico, I think, conforms a little bit more to the Western stereotype of what Latin America is about. You know, without going into the negative side of it, you know, there's friendly people, you know, people on the streets, you know, people playing dominoes in public squares, you know, those kind of stereotypes that people have. In Chile, though, you know, it's quite different. They quite proudly told me when I was there that Chile is the England of South America, which they presented as a good thing, but I didn't necessarily think that was. So, you know, the Chileans generally much more reserved, much more conservative, you know, not just in their political views, but also in, you know, the way that they conduct their everyday lives. So even though I was teaching high school kids in Chile to begin with, and I was teaching at basically a community college in Mexico, you know, it was much easier to socialize with the students in Mexico. They were louder, they were more raucous. In Chile, they needed a bit more coaxing, they needed a bit more prompting in order to open up. So yeah, I mean, the two countries are quite different. So I don't think I was 100% prepared for the reality of living in Chile.
I'm intrigued by this notion that Chile is in any way like England. Like, surely the food is better in Chile. Like, that must be one thing they have over us.
I'm gonna say that it's comparable.
Oh, wow.
Again, you know, it's quite bland, honestly.
Oh, wow.
So no, that part of it definitely made me feel at home. But yeah, I think, you know, I went there as my ex-girlfriend was living there at the time, so I went there to be with her, and she definitely wasn't prepared for that, for what she found in Chile. I think, as I said, you know, she expected to find, you know, more of the stereotype that she had of Latin America, and she didn't find that. So, you know, as I said, the people are kind of reserved, people are conservative. There's not so much street culture as there is in other parts of Latin America. The food is pretty bland, not much seasoning, not much spice. So yeah, it's a little bit different from what we both expected.
What about in Mexico? Did you try anything exotic? Any crickets or different insects or strange market adventures?
I didn't try any insects, but yeah, I'm sure I ate a number of things that I didn't really know. You know, I didn't really know what they were. They just kind of appeared in front of me, and I ate them. I guess one of the more interesting things I tried was pulque. I don't know if you tried that. So
yeah,
that was definitely a new experience.
That's adventurous. Yeah. Well, I was in Oaxaca, so there was like chapulines, which are the crickets, the sort of crispy fried crickets are very popular there. And there's also a really large ant that comes out after the first rain every year called the chicatana. And they're like huge ants, and they grind them up and make a powder. And then out of the powder, they can make salsa or hot sauce, all kinds of stuff.
So does that add much flavor, or is that more of a gimmick?
Surprisingly, some of the other teachers loved it. They loved it, and they would like stock up every time they were going home with like a bunch of jars.
Okay.
It was never my favorite, so I don't know. I'm a vegetarian, so I'm not sure what to think about insects.
Well, I'll have to try it next time I'm in Mexico.
One for the bucket list.
Yeah.
Speaking of like bucket lists and travel, did you get to experience anywhere else in kind of Latin America?
So the first time when I was in Mexico, I took a trip down to South America. So I went to Peru, and I went to Chile that time too. So I went to stay with my friend's family in Lima, and then went to Cusco, went to Machu Picchu. So, you know, that was a bucket list thing, I guess I could say. Nice. And then when I was in Chile, I got the opportunity to go to Argentina, which was great, where they do actually have good food. So nice. And I also went to Bolivia as well, which was, so it was a real highlight for me, I think. It's one of those countries that is perhaps not particularly well known, or it's not on many people's list of places to go, but it's a pretty amazing place.
Did you, were those in the days at Machu Picchu when you could still do the Inca Trail hike relatively easily, or?
I believe so, yeah. So that was in 2011. So
yeah,
I think so. At that point, I wasn't much into hiking, so
you took the train and the bus.
Yeah, I didn't go for the whole Inca Trail experience. That seemed a bit extreme to me, but now I've got into hiking. I'd love to do that, but yeah, as you say, it's a little bit trickier than it.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more controlled now than it used to be.
Yeah.
What about in terms of, like, I know from teaching in Mexico, the salaries in Latin America aren't as high as in some of the other, English teaching destinations. Were you able to support yourself and even save any money while you were down there?
So when I was in Mexico, the salary I had was, that time I think it was 8,000 Mexican pesos per month, which at that time I think was about $600 a month, which sounds very low, but that was more than sufficient for me. I can't say that I saved much, but I was paying about $50 a month in rent, and then that would, everything's pretty cheap where I was living. Leon, Mexico is, it's not a beach town, it's not a tourist destination, so I could take a taxi for $2. I could go out to eat for lunch for $2. I could take the bus for a couple of hours for $2 or $3. So I mean, it really, it sounds like a small amount, and obviously living in the UK or the US or Canada, $600 a month is nothing, but that was more than sufficient to live on. When I was living in Santiago, Chile, I was earning a lot more than that. Santiago obviously is it's a much more expensive city to live in, but even for around $1,000 a month, you'd probably be fine. And it varied, but I was earning normally between $2,000 and $3,000 a month working in Santiago. So while I was there, I'd actually managed to save quite a lot of money. Saying that, I would prefer to go back to Mexico and earn $600 a month rather than go and earn $3,000 a month in Santiago. So
I think a lot of people need to hear that. I don't know about Alex, you're a job placement advisor, so you probably get more of it, but speaking to students of ours, sometimes they do just kind of think about the money, whereas it's not just about that dollar amount. There's way more to the whole experience, I guess.
Yeah, and also like the quality of your life while you're there. I mean, if you're having a pretty good quality of life and you're able to, go out to eat and enjoy things in your neighborhood, that means a lot, So sometimes you're not able to save much, but you have a really good time, and so it's well worth it for the experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's when I'm teaching Oxford Seminars courses, that's something I always encourage the students to consider.
Yeah.
Often when they're looking at the lists of, salaries and places to go, the first thing they scan for is the highest salary, right? I think that's just kind of natural. But then, are they really ready to live in Saudi Arabia, or, do they really want to live in South Korea? And I think those are important things to consider.
What are some of the other questions that students taking the course ask you? Are there common ones that pop up again and again?
I don't have any probably the most common one is, I don't have any teaching experience. Can I get a job? Or how difficult is it to get a job. I think those are probably the two most common ones. And I think, you know, the answer to both of those is there are so many jobs that it's, you know, if you're open to destinations, then you'll be able to find a job without much difficulty.
Do you like that side of the teaching the Oxford Seminars course? Because obviously primarily you're there to, you know, show people how to be an effective ESL teacher, but there's kind of a lot more to it, I guess. You kind of, over those 3 weekends, you get to know these people pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the main focus is the teaching skills, but, you know, I see it as more of a kind of holistic, this makes it sound a bit grandiose, but it's more of a little bit more of a holistic experience, I think, where, you know, I'm trying to prepare them as much as possible for getting a job and moving abroad. And sure, part of that is teaching skills, but a lot of it is not teaching skills, right? There are a lot of things to consider and be prepared for that are not related to actually being in the classroom.
Yeah, like you mentioned, you felt like you weren't necessarily totally prepared for Chile. Is the things that you take away from that you try to impart that wisdom to your students in the course, or?
Sure. So, I mean, one example I normally use is, and this might seem a little bit trivial, but let me explain it. So, you know, I moved to the south of Chile, which is, you know, generally much more conservative than the urban centers. And, you know, in a lot of places and you know, a lot of families, they still love Pinochet. And I wasn't really ready for that. I wasn't anticipating that being the case. And so that was quite a shock to me. And so I guess what I'm saying, bigger picture there, is that the place I was going was considerably more conservative than I thought it was. And I could have found that out fairly easily in advance, but I didn't. So, you know, people have an idea of what a certain place is going to be like, whether that's Japan or Thailand or China or Mexico, Brazil. And some of that will be true, but there are going to be a lot of things in those places that you're not going to expect. So, you know, nowadays I encourage people to take a look at YouTube videos, especially. You know, and there are plenty of YouTube videos of people fawning over, you know, Mexico and saying how wonderful everything is. But if you dig a little deeper, you can find people expressing their genuine experiences, you know, the good parts and the bad parts, and letting you know, you know, giving you a more rounded picture of what the experience will actually be like if you go to one of those places. So I try to encourage people to do that. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to break down, to move past people's expectations. So, but, you know, I do what I can in the 6 days that I'm with them.
So you also have a podcast, Robin. Is that the kind of perspective that you try to give people on the podcast as well?
Yeah, so I've got a podcast called Permanently Resident that co-host with my friend Jose, who is a Peruvian American. He lives in Tokyo in Japan. And obviously I'm living in the Bay Area, California. So yeah, I mean, we talk about our experiences living and working in different places. And yeah, one of those is, you know, offering a little bit more of a realistic view of how things actually are, you know, what things cost, how people react to you in different places, how difficult or how easy it is to get a job, how we've changed, you know, those types of things.
How is Jose doing in Tokyo at the moment? It's a little bit tense situation, I think.
I think generally the situation in Japan's been pretty calm, and they've dealt with the whole COVID situation pretty well. Life's gone on pretty much as normal as far as I understand it from him. So I think he's doing pretty well. Obviously, he has, as a Latin Hispanic person working in Japan, there are many more cultural barriers that he comes across every day compared to me living in California. So I think that's one of the things he continues to struggle with.
How about you? You mentioned personal change. How would you say you've changed from living and working abroad? Has it changed you a lot, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think comparing myself to 10 years ago, it's a lot, but the change has been quite gradual over time. I just been writing another blog post for Oxford Seminars on a related theme. And I think the first thing that changed for me, and has continued to have quite a big impact on me, is that starting to teach and then improving at that and then succeeding at that gave me a lot of confidence that I didn't have before. And so to begin with, that just helped me be better at my job. But over time, that's helped in other aspects of my life, whether that's been in other professional circumstances, meeting people when networking or whatever, building friendships, even dating. So I'd say that's been the biggest impact for me, building confidence.
I guess we should mention you can find, you will see that blog and other blogs by Robin at oxfordseminars.com/blog. Robin, before we let you go, I was just wondering if you had kind of one main piece of advice or, words of encouragement for anyone who is kind of on the fence about perhaps taking the Oxford Seminars course or just teaching overseas in general.
I don't know if I can condense all of my wisdom into a single sentence. I mean, I'd say a couple of things. Going back to what we mentioned before is, consider carefully where you're choosing to go. Don't be too drawn in by the pictures you see on the internet or the stereotypes you have of a place. Right? Think carefully about what type of person you are, what kind of environment you like to live in, how much of a challenge you're ready for. Living in rural China, that's going to be one type of challenge. Living in Mexico City, that's going to be a different type of challenge. So I guess I'd encourage people to, try and go past other people's expectations and think about what they really want and what they're really ready for.
Perfect. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast today with us. Can you just remind us one more time the name of your podcast and where to find it?
So the name is called Permanently Resident, and you can find it on various different places where you normally find podcasts: Apple Music, Spotify, all the regular suspects.
Perfect. Thanks again, Robin. Have a great day. Try and stay out of the sun and enjoy reopened California. Freedom is here.
All right. Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
All right. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Don't forget, you could get $50 off your Oxford Seminars TESOL TESOL TEFL course price when paying in full by calling 1-800-779-1779 by July 2nd and giving the code POD630. Oxford Seminars is one of the leading providers of TESOL TESOL TEFL training courses in North America, so visit oxfordseminars.com today to find out more. Now back to the show.
So thanks again to Robin Garnham for that wonderful interview. You should check out his podcast on Spotify, Apple, wherever that is Permanently Resident. And before we leave you today, Alex, do you have an update for us from the job placement department?
Yeah, James, since we've been talking about teaching in Latin America in this episode, I just wanted to give a quick update on Some of the countries in that region who have been actively hiring over the past few months, obviously with the pandemic, that has affected international travel and work opportunities. But there are still a number of countries in Latin America who've been able to safely bring teachers in for in-country positions. Probably the big ones out of these are Mexico, Colombia, and Chile, which are nice because they offer a range of landscapes and cultures, but also a range of teaching opportunities. So everything from children's classes at private schools to teens and adults and internship and volunteer programs to business English in big cities, and university students and working professionals as well. So there's a really nice mix of opportunities. And a few of our other contacts in the region, like in Ecuador and Costa Rica, switched to teaching their students online. So they're still teaching their own students at their school, but they're using online platforms to do it. So they're hiring teachers from North America to teach their students online. Most of them do hope to be able to transition back to in-country positions in 2022 or whenever it's safe to do so. And some of them have been. We just got word that our contact in Costa Rica has just been able to bring a teacher in for in-country teaching. And also a contact in Argentina has let us know that they're now hiring for positions for a February 2022 start for in-country positions again in Argentina. So hopefully that trend towards more in-country teaching opportunities will continue for 2022.
Thank you very much, Alex, for keeping us in the loop with the job world. And thank you, listener, for tuning in to the Teaching Abroad pod. We'll be releasing new episodes at least every 2 weeks, so be sure to like and subscribe and share it with your friends. Remember, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. If you have any great ideas you'd like us to discuss in upcoming episodes, please leave them in the comments on YouTube or send us a message at Oxford Seminars on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Or you can email us at teachingabroadpod@oxfordseminars.com. Have a great day.